Well, it is 7 o'clock and we always have lots of area to cover. So we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. I'm Noni Strand. I convened this group from Kansas, and I'm glad to see you all here. We'll start with a prayer and do some brief introductions to get to know one another. So let us pray. Oh God, as we approach the solstice, we are reminded of your love that is forever renewing and bright and hopeful and filled with energy. And we are reminded that you accompany us on this journey of faithfulness and commitment. Oh God, I am grateful for each of these people gathered, those who cannot be here tonight, and for your continuing energy to help us as we seek to treat the world more kindly, to reach out to all those in need, both human and more than human, and that you guide our ways and our stewardship and our hope. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
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 Okay, great to have you. We're going to just do some quick introductions. We've got a couple new people on the call. If you could just identify your name, where you're calling from, perhaps your faith community, and then identify the next person to introduce themselves. So I'm Noni. I'm in Olathe, Kansas, and I'm a member of Overland Park Lutheran Church and also the Lutheran Restoring Creation Mission Table here in the Central State Synod. And I'll pass it on to Steve and Kathy.
Hi, I'm Stephen Couch at First Lutheran in Topeka. And last night I was just re-elected to another one-year term as our council president, so I could use your prayers.
And I'm Kathy, his wife at First Lutheran, and I'm the chair of our committee, and we've named ourselves Earth First. Earth First. So it wasn't
like
too
that.
original considering we're First Lutheran, but we kind of
I like
incorporated.
that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. Yes. And I'll pass it to Donna. Donna Rasmussen. Here she is.
I'm coming, sorry. Hi, sorry. Yeah, I'm Donna Rasmussen from Hesper Lutheran in Decorah, north of Decorah, Iowa.
Oh.
Jim invited me.
Great.
Donna, you have to pick somebody else.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I got in here a little late. Linda?
Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Shumney. I am from Christ the King Lutheran Church in Texas, Houston, Texas. And I will pass it to my friend Lisa.
So I apologize again for no video, but like I said, my summer attire sometimes is not video friendly. Lisa Brunskelly, also a member of Christ the King in Houston, Texas. And let's see, who hasn't gone yet? Jim, you said you were passing, so I guess we're gonna have to pick someone else then. How about Susan? Susan hasn't gone yet, right?
Right. I'm Susan Meyer. I'm from the Delaware, Maryland Synod near Baltimore. I'm a member of Faith in a town called Cockeysville, Maryland, which isn't the greatest name, but it's okay. I'll pass it to David Thompson.
Yeah, I'm David Thompson, and my congregation is Family of Christ Lutheran in Chanhassen, Minnesota. And I'll pass it on to Pat.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, David. My name's Pat Allman-Road. I'm a member of St. Peter's Lutheran in Midtown Manhattan, calling from New York City. And I am former secretary of Lutherans Restoring Creation. And I'll pass it to Cindy.
I'm Cindy Gross. I'm a member at Bethel Lutheran in St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm not sure who hasn't gone yet. Diane.
Diane and Kathy, yeah.
Okay, I'll pick Diane.
I'm Diane Laughlin, a member of St. James Lutheran Church in Kansas City North. And let's see who hasn't gone? Kathy Smith.
I'm Kathy Smith, and I'm a member of Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Port Angeles, Washington. And I'm on a real low band here in Idaho today. I'm just crossing Idaho, and I'm glad that I was able to catch you guys, but I have to sit right here next to the window. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, welcome to all of you. So glad you're here. Tonight, we are going to continue our work with Jim Martin Schramm, who's going to help us continue about energy-related measures that can reduce consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. And he has 4 volunteer congregations that he has some practical things to show us. So I'm going to go ahead and just read his bio again for those of you who were not here before. Jim is a professor emeritus of religion at Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. He's been an ardent advocate for energy efficiency and renewable energy systems in his home congregation, First Lutheran in Decorah, at Luther College, and within the state of Iowa. Jim recently ended a term as the director of Luther's Center for Sustainable Communities and currently serves as chair of the City of Decorah Sustainability Commission. Also, I want to add that Jim was the author, the primary author of the new social message for the ELCA on Earth's climate crisis. So thank you for your work on that, Jim. Thanks for all that you've shared here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Noni. It's great to be back with all of you folks again. 4 of you reached out after the last meeting and said, yeah, we'll take you up on it. Here's some info about our congregations, and here's our street address. So with that, I sort of, provided some feedback to each of them. And so I basically gone into the emails I sent to each of them and created a series of PowerPoint slides or Google slides to sort of show you what I did with them. But I'd say at the highest level here, the most important thing your congregation can do is get a high quality energy audit of your facility. And ideally, you don't have to pay for that. Ideally, you're a customer of an investor-owned utility that offers that. But the reality is that's not as common. And so if that doesn't work, you'll see how I refer people to other sources to try to get one. I mean, when you go someplace you haven't been before, you need a map, right? An energy audit is a map to your facility, and without it, you're kind of going into it blind, and you really don't have a good idea of what to prioritize. So that's the common theme across all of the slides that I'll share with you tonight. So I'm going to go through this. I'm a professor. You can stop me anytime, but if you don't, I'll probably just rattle on and on. So don't let that happen. Okay, so this is round 2, how to reduce energy related emissions in congregations, Roman numeral 2. You can see my contact info, my email there. Feel free to reach out. So I heard from, let's see here, 4 congregations, Holy Trinity in Port Angeles, Washington, Bethel and Hope, both in I think the St. Louis area, right? Cindy and Jan from Missouri, and Kathy from Port Angeles, and then Susan from Maryland. I think we should just all pick up stakes and move to Maryland, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the kingdom of God when it comes to policy that we're interested in here. You'll see what I mean later. It's pretty crazy. So I'll start with Port Angeles, and each one has a kind of picture of their, a screenshot of their webpage. I've never been to Port Angeles. I've spent a fair bit of time in the state of Washington. My wife's family all lives there, and I went to PLU. But to my knowledge, I've never been to Port Angeles. This is the screenshot of their facility. Excuse me, dinner wasn't that long ago, so I'm still processing it. Here's the church here and a preschool and, you know, pretty good sized roof area on the west side here and on the south side of this building. So I'll share with you what Kathy shared with me. She sent me, as I had requested, the utility data, you know, their electricity, and if I can't remember if they have natural gas consumption. But the reality is that information is going to be more helpful to whoever is doing your energy audit than it is necessarily to me. But nevertheless, it was helpful to have. She has it in the EPA Portfolio Manager website, which I think some of the folks maybe on this Zoom conversation have, but most people don't, and that's fine. You don't have to. Their utility provider is Port Angeles Utilities, which is a municipal electric utility. And she made sure I understood that it's not a different one in that area. So that's important for any of you that are thinking about, you know, trying to gather your information. The first thing you need to figure out is who is supplying you with electricity, heating fuel, etc. What I said to her, or what she said to me, is when you look at our building on Google Earth, you'll see a lot of windows. Okay, now I can't quite read everything over there. They are installation date appropriate thermal panes, and our Narthex has a skylight. What's going on here? They have a new heat pump, which is pretty cool, and they're trying to do some things with insulating their windows. They don't know how to contain the heat in the Narthex, which I'm sure is just going straight up through that skylight. But she's realizing that they're going to have a thoughtfully engineered system to kind of grapple with that and their broader HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning needs. She says their entry doors are terribly leaky, which in my experience is not uncommon in public facilities, and especially in facilities like Port Angeles, where my guess is their cost for electricity is less expensive than it is for some of us here in the Midwest. So you don't worry about it as much. Then she said any inputs you have on rebates or tax credits for conservation and how to apply for them would be helpful. So then I responded and I said, hey, I went online, I looked up the city of Port Angeles Utilities, I found their phone number and I sent it to her. And I said, you know, ask them whether they have energy efficiency rebates for commercial and or nonprofit organizations. They may very well, I don't know, and I don't know whether she was able to find that out. And then also, if they don't, ask them if they can recommend somebody locally that could come to the congregation and do a comprehensive energy audit. So that was the initial feedback. Then what I pointed out was, while you have them on the phone, ask them whether Port Angeles Utilities offers net metering on solar photovoltaic systems up to 100 kilowatt of installed capacity. This website, Desire, is one I shared with you before. This is a live link. You can see the little finger on it. And this would take you, I'm not going to press it now because I'm not sure exactly what that do in my presentation, but it will take you to the state of Washington and its rules regarding net metering. I don't know if you're all familiar with what net metering is, but if you, in the states that have it, and for the customers that are included in the policy, if you have a PV system that produces more than you can consume, it basically runs your meter backwards. And so you get all the value of your solar system's production at retail rates. That's a very desirable policy, but that's being chipped away at all around the country. Nevertheless, it appears that that policy is available to them in Port Angeles, but it may not apply to municipal utilities. So I encourage them to reach out and find out about that. Then I just, pointed out, as I did when we began, that they have quite a bit of roof surface that could host a significant amount of solar. And since they just put in this new heat pump, my guess is their energy consumption may be increasing. I don't know if that heat pump replaced maybe a propane fueled boiler or something else. But the first question to ask if you're thinking about solar on your facility is what is the condition of the roof that you would put solar on? You don't want to put solar on a roof that's going to need a repair in 5 years because it's expensive to take that solar off. So you can see I asked her about that. I did reiterate to her that if the congregation were to put solar on, they would be able to tap the 30% investment tax credit through that direct pay option. So that's those details are not completely ironed out yet, but nonprofit, non-taxable entities are able to, if it's $1 million project, yeah, you should be able to get a $300,000 check from Uncle Sam. Or let's make it more reasonable. If it's a $100,000 project, you should be able to get a $30,000 check from Uncle Sam by exercising the direct payment option. Nonprofits have not been able to utilize tax credits. Now we can because of the Inflation Reduction Act. If you remember my presentation last time, I talked about some adders, 10% if you're in an energy community, 10% if you're in a low income community, etc. I used this map from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to figure out, I plugged in the church's address, and on the basis of that was able to determine that unfortunately they're not eligible for any of the adders that could accompany the 30% investment tax credit for solar projects. But, you know, 30% is still pretty good. And, you know, the other thing they probably have to think about is their electricity is almost certainly hydro. And as a result, it's you know, pretty clean already. So, you know, putting solar on the roof, and especially in an area where it rains a lot and it's very cloudy, it just may not make sense. But I thought I'd bring up the possibility of solar. Let's see here. Chat. Okay, good. I won't be able to monitor the chat while I'm yammering away here. But hopefully we'll have time to come back and talk about it later. Those things later. Now, she had asked about tax credits for energy conservation. And what I said in my email to her is, unfortunately, the direct pay provision, the one I just talked about, only applies to the installation of renewable energy systems and not to energy efficient equipment like air source heat pumps, which is what they just put in. Although geothermal heat pumps do qualify for the 30% tax credit and the direct pay provision. But as I said during my presentation last time, the IRA did expand this part of the IRS code, the energy efficient commercial building deduction. They expanded it to nonprofits. It provides a tax incentive to those who build or renovate energy efficient buildings. The tax deduction is triggered if building design improvements result in energy use efficiency gains of at least 25%. So I talked about this last time on this slide in my original presentation. So if you click on it, that'll take you right to it. And you can learn more about this program with this article published by the National Council of Nonprofits. But here's the slide, I think, that I had in the last time. Last time I was talking about Tanque Verde Lutheran in Tucson. So the way this works is you have to achieve at least a 25% reduction in on-site energy use intensity. So that's the amount of energy used per square foot in a building. And you can see here what is pegged at $250 a square foot. So if you do 10,000 square feet, that's 100,000, right? If you do, it's 40,000 square feet. So 10,000, so 12,500, I think, right? If you do 10,000 square feet, I don't know, like 25,000. It's terrible. If you get up to this higher amount, the person doing the work for you has to apply or abide by prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. And it's not a direct pay thing. So the way this works is the architect or the contractor that you work with. So this is assuming a kind of whole facility remodel of a church, that architect or contractor can file for the tax deduction and then pass the value on to your church, or to, if they're working with other nonprofits or government entities. So there's another link to more information here. Okay, why is it frozen? There we go. So this is a lot about something that few of you may actually do, but in order to access the financial value of the program, you need a professional engineering or architectural firm to develop a comprehensive assessment of your energy efficiency opportunities, and then later measure and verify that a reduction of at least 25% in energy use intensity has been achieved after the installation of all measures. So if you were doing something that would result in 10,000 square feet and you can verify it, then your contractor or your architect would get a tax break of 25,000, and hopefully they would pass the full value or most of that value on to you as their customer. So it's it's not covering everything, but it's at least a helpful chunk of change, but it's a lot to monkey with. I understand or realize. Tax deduction goes to your contractor, engineering firm, etc. They send the requisite paperwork, and then hopefully they pass that revenue on to you, or you use it to reduce the cost of their services by that amount. So if Port Angeles can't refer you to such a firm, you may want to reach out to the state of Washington's building electrification program to see if they have any incentives that you can tap, or have any firms that they can recommend. I sent her a link to that building electrification program, but it must not have copied through here. So that's for the church in Port Angeles, Washington. It's pretty fast. I got 4 churches to go through here, so I'm going to keep barreling through. So next one is Bethel in St. Louis. You can see a picture of their sanctuary in the bottom right-hand corner there. And then here's a bird's eye view of it. It has a nice Montessori school and solar on top of the roof of that facility. Cindy wrote to me and passed along information about the size of their sanctuary and fellowship hall, passed along their energy usage and natural gas consumption, pointed out those solar panels and how much they produced, and then how much they exported offsite. So this is, now I don't know exactly how this works under because they're leasing this system. And I'm not sure how all that works, but that's something we could pick up in a different session. But they are served by Ameren, Missouri, and which provides them with electricity, and Spire, which provides them with natural gas. So again, my point to all of you is start with trying to get a good energy audit. Well, Spire and Ameren are both investor-owned utilities, and investor-owned utilities are regulated in most states in a different way compared to municipal electric utilities and rural electric cooperatives. And as a result, investor-owned utilities tend to have building energy audit programs. So Spire has a commercial and industrial services division, and they say they've got experts that can craft customized natural gas solutions based on your individualized needs. So I encouraged her to reach out to these folks. But also Ameren has a series of electrical energy efficiency programs, but it looks like they only offer incentives and not audits. So there's a form on their webpage. I dug all this up out of the internet and sent it in my email to her. So, where you live, find out who your utility is, go noodling around on their website, see what you can find out. If you run into problems, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to. I'm a digger. I like to dig stuff up like this. So this form, you can tell them, well, we're interested in lighting, or we're interested in heating, or we're interested in cooling systems, whatever. I just said, pick one of those, lighting, for example, see what kind of response that gets. And once you get a human being, tell them that you really want a full facility energy audit. But if that isn't possible, you may have to have multiple contractors from this that are affiliated with Ameren come out to the church and take a look. But the first thing to do here is talk to these utilities and find out what they offer. They've got PV on the roof of their Montessori school. And so, you know, I don't know that they have a whole lot more room to host more PV. But it could, looks like, hosted on the east and west sides of one of their roofs. And if they did, well, like I said, they should be able to take advantage of that 30% tax credit and get the, you know, through direct payment and get that full value. But again, they don't qualify for any of those adders. So again, here's a link to that map, and you can put your own church's address in there to find out kind of where you stand. If you have questions about that and how to use it, I'd be happy to, you know, talk that through with you. If your church, now this is for churches in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Illinois. If you're thinking about putting up PV, Green Penny is here in my backyard. It's a virtual branch of a local community bank called Decorah Bank and Trust. It's a family-owned, employee-owned bank, and they opened a virtual branch of their bank called Green Penny that only makes investments in solar and energy efficiency. So if you're a homeowner, you're a church, you're a business, and you want to invest in efficiency and or solar, these guys are happy to talk to you. And so here's the link to them. I don't get any money. This is not a kickback situation here. But I know these folks. I've helped them kind of get this virtual branch up and running, and it's going gangbusters. If your church is looking at a place to try to park some money in a short-term CD, well, think about putting it at Green Penny, because every one of those dollars is going to be loaned out to these homeowners and business owners and nonprofits that want to invest in solar and energy efficiency. Like I said, these are the 5 states where they currently are doing business, which is, you know, basically all around us here. And there's a link to some of the commercial projects that they've done. With regard to energy conservation, I just referred back to those slides earlier about that section 179D tax deduction program that I talked about. So I'm not going to reiterate that here. And that brings me to Hope Lutheran, also in Missouri, in the St. Louis area. A lot of roof there, baby. I like roofs. So here's the bird's eye view of it. You know, facing southeast here, southeast here, southeast here, west here. You know, here's some room. You know, so if Hope wanted to put in PV, they've got a pretty good situation. If they wanted to do geothermal, I mean, unfortunately, it looks like their parking lot just is brand spanking new. But they could probably drill a bunch of wells in their parking lot, and the same would be true for the other church I just talked about, Bethel. But Jan, they're both customers of Ameren and Spire as well. So Jan sent me up, there's their address, where they're located, square footage, when things were built. And you know, so, you know, quite a bit of facility and, you know, quite a bit of space, really. Although, you know, 21,500 is actually not that much space. Our church in Decorah is 31,000 between the sanctuary and the education building. Well, anyway, this was convenient, but you know, Jan and I forget the gal from Bethel, but they, you know, both are customers of the same utilities, so it was easy for me to share some of the same information. She went on and, you know, talked about the type of roofing they have, what's going on with their windows. And so, you know, the windows now are probably getting on 50 years old. And, you know, they probably need a good hard look. No place for ground mount, but plenty of space for some roof mounted panels. So I sent her the same response that I gave to Bethel with regard to getting an energy audit. Reach out to those two utilities and see what they can do for her. And then with regard to solar, you know, well suited for rooftop solar and or geothermal, with a geo well field located in the parking lot. Again, they would qualify for the 30% tax credit direct payment, but they don't qualify for any of those adders. So that's a bummer. Although they would qualify for the 10% domestic content adder if they went with geothermal. So if you had a, I don't know, again, 100,000 geothermal thing, system, well, that'd be $300,000 you'd get back from Uncle Sam. And if it's all domestic content, which geothermal stuff mostly would almost certainly be, well, you get 40%, that's another 10,000. So 40% off a $100,000 system merits looking hard at. Now, again, you don't just do a geothermal assessment off the back of your envelope. You need a professional in the area to come and kind of talk about it. And that may not be anything that they're interested in, but I thought I'd mention this, the geothermal piece here. Same thing with regard to Green Penny. If you're interested in solar PV financing or just energy efficiency stuff, Green Penny would be happy to talk to you. It occurred to me when I was writing to her that another option is what's called third-party financing. So Missouri allows businesses and nonprofits to lease solar systems, although the maximum size again is 100 kilowatts. But it doesn't permit something that is legal here in Iowa, which are called third-party power purchase agreements. So in both cases, whether it's a lease or a third-party power purchase agreement, the reason this might be attractive is the third-party investor can tap the value of that income tax credit, not the direct payment part of it, just the 30% investment tax credit. But they can also utilize accelerated tax depreciation benefits that nonprofits like churches cannot utilize. On the other hand, you know, for that additional financial benefit that you access through the third party, then you're still getting in bed with a third party for, you know, a period of time. And some churches might just say, no, let's just own it, you know, from the outset. So again, that's something we can talk about perhaps at on a different presentation. So if you're interested, we can talk about the pros and cons of that later. And then finally, Faith Lutheran in Maryland. I know I'm kind of barreling through it because I want to be sure we have plenty of time to talk to each other. In Cockeysville. I love it. Nice picture of the pastor there. This is what it looks like from the air. Be a challenge maybe with PV here, but and there's some trees. But this whole side, maybe these trees would have to go, but this whole side is facing west. And as I'll point out later, Maryland has a solar canopy program that nonprofits can tap into. So like I said, Maryland's like the kingdom of God when it comes to renewable energy policy. There's just so many possibilities here. So Susan sent me, and Susan, you're on the call, I know, sent me their gas, their electricity usage. Both utilities, gas and natural gas, or gas and electricity, are supplied by Baltimore Gas and Electric. They just replaced their HVAC in the sanctuary, but it's not an air source. It's not a heat pump system. It's a natural gas fired, I assume, furnace. And then, but they do have some ductless air source heat pumps. I think that's what these are in some of the classrooms that they have in another building. And it sounds like that's currently being studied. They haven't gotten the bid back yet. Again, just looking at their church from the air, built in 1990. There was another part of it that was built in the late 60s. I assume that's part in here maybe. And then the roof has been recently replaced, so that's good. If you were to put any solar on there. And then this is the original part of the church here. And it's a flat roof, and it's had work done as recently as 2020. So, you know, if you were to put PV there, I'm not sure you could get much on it. That, you know, at least the roofing situation looks pretty good. Plus, they've been definitely ahead of the curve in terms of their lighting. So it sounds like almost all their lighting is LED. And they must have, they did that through Baltimore Gas and Electric contractor. So they have figured out how to tap some of the incentives that they can get from their utility. You know, not a very large facility, really, 9,000 square feet. So again, the drum I like to beat is about the importance of getting a quality energy audit, and it looks like Baltimore Gas and Electric offers building tune-up programs. So I'm not sure this will be the same thing as an energy audit, but at least by reaching out to them, you can find out if they do have, well, right here it says schedule an energy audit. So this is an energy audit. So they're in a good shape. So if they haven't gotten that, I told her that they should. And then there are both equipment incentive rebates available through the utility that nonprofits can access and utilize. And so I asked her about that. I'm pretty sure that's what their LED lighting came in under here, was one of those, probably the custom equipment incentive. But that's something else to reach out to your utilities about. What, you know, beyond an audit, what other incentives do you have to help us invest in energy efficient technology? Solar, well, they could participate in Maryland's commercial clean energy rebate program, which you would be able to combine with the 30% direct payment option. I didn't look too closely at what this amounts to financially, but it's you know, if it's $100,000 system and you get 30,000 bucks from Uncle Sam, you're going to get something else from the state. So nice. Then, as I said, they've got a solar energy generation system pilot program. Now, again, I didn't have time to dig into the weeds here. So it's possible that all the capacity for that program has been chewed up. But I found all of this through, if you click on these links, I think they take you to desire.org, which is this national clearinghouse of energy efficiency, renewable energy policies by state. And it's really robust. So that's how I was able to dig these things up for her. And then, as I said, they've got this parking lot PV with an EV charger grant program. And the western edge of their parking lot could host quite a bit of solar under a solar canopy system where you park your car underneath the solar canopy. But at least a couple trees would have to be removed, most likely. So anyway, pretty amazing resources at the state level. There's another one here. They qualify for this Resilient Maryland program. Again, I didn't dig into it too much, but it looks like it might cover some of their, you know, some of their costs for, you know, doing engineering or planning and installing distributed energy like solar. So it's, you know, in their case, I said it's definitely worth looking into. Now, whether there's still funding for it, I don't know. I didn't have the time to dig into it. So that's that. I know I went through that very quickly, and I'm sure there are a whole host of things now over in the chat. Lisa's very good about digging up resources and throwing them at you as well. So I'll stop and see what kind of questions you have, or if I've just absolutely buried you.
Well, Jim, my question is, some of these congregations seem to be a
things,
little
I'd
bit
like to mention.
farther
This is
along in their
Kathy. Can you hear me okay?
process. But so would a good starting place just be call your utility companies and find out what kinds of things they have, dig around on their websites a little bit to see what kind of things they offer, and just
Yeah.
kind of establish a relationship with your utility companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, call them, and like I said, find out if they offer energy audits, find out if they offer incentives for investment in energy efficient technologies, find out if they don't offer an audit, who they think could do an audit for you. And I realize, an audit like this for commercial property could be, I don't know, $500, $750.
Okay.
And I know that for some folks, that's just like, whoa, no, that's crazy. But, sometimes you got to spend money to save money. And I really think if it's a quality audit, and you should, ask for references if you're dealing with a third party, I think it's well worth the investment.
Yeah.
Because they're going to give you a roadmap to things that you can do. And of course, you should be clear with them up front that, look, we're trying to cut our emissions in half and ultimately zero them out. And so don't just give us the standard, we don't want to repeat the past. We want to change the future. And so be clear about that with them. They may kind of roll their eyes and go, well, you're a bunch of liberal do-gooders that don't know anything. You're going to be freezing to death in January, but you're right, Noni. That's definitely the first place to start. But then, I had said last time, gather your utility information. If your utility is doing the audit for you, they'll be able to gather that, at least for the utility they serve you with, if it's electricity or natural gas, or in Baltimore, gas and electric both. But if you are using a third party, they're going to need you to, either give them access to your accounts if you have electronic accounts, or they're going to ask you for the data, and so you need to gather it. But you can see from the presentations, the 4 different presentations, that it really depends on where you live.
Yeah.
There can be kind of remarkable resources at the state level that might exist in Minnesota that don't exist down here in red hot Iowa. Sorry. And like I said, Maryland is very different, I think, compared to Missouri in terms of resources. So.
Yeah, so I know Pat has his hand up, but I just wanted to thank you publicly so much for all that information that you gave to us. And I couldn't believe you came back with it so quickly. I mean, it was like you had the answers already before I asked the question. So thank you so much.
I'm happy to do it. I mean, I've been doing this for quite a while, and so I kind of know where to go looking, and that that desire page is really fabulous. It can be a little overwhelming. It can be a lot of detail, and there's a lot of stuff there that doesn't pertain to you. But once you kind of get comfortable with it and get used to it and kind of roam around in it, then pretty quickly you should be able to figure out what's what and what might be useful to you. Pat, you've got a question. You got your hand up like a good, polite person.
Yeah, well, I'm Lutheran, so.
Yeah, it looks like you're in the back row there.
Yeah, so I want to echo Susan. First of all, thank you for all this information. My question really is more a matter of curiosity than anything else, actually. At the very beginning, you said that maybe your investor-owned utility would be able to pay for, would provide the audit for free. That's as opposed to a public-owned utility, and if so, why?
Well, so if any utility, how does a utility make money? Well, I think most of us think that they make money by selling us their utility, by selling us natural gas or selling us electricity. The reality is, truthfully, they have been making money by building stuff and getting public utility commissions to give them 9, 10, 11% return on equity. Nice. I'd take that deal if I could get it. So the challenge for any utility is if they help you invest in efficiency, that means you're going to buy less of it from them. So what's in it for me, right? If you're the utility. And so at least I'll talk about Iowa, but I think it's somewhat reflective of some other states. In Iowa, we have 180 electric utilities, but only 2 investor-owned electric utilities. So these are Mid-American Energy and Alliant Energy, and their shares are bought and sold on the New York Stock Exchange. The other 178 are 135 municipal electric utilities and 42 rural electric cooperatives. In the state of Iowa, they can offer energy efficiency programs to their customers, but they don't have to. The only utilities that have to offer a full suite of energy efficiency services to their customers are the investor-owned. And that's because they're rich. and they have, 70% of the population of the state. So in general, that's kind of how it works. It's not that municipal electric utilities and rural electric utilities are not regulated. They are, but often to a lesser extent than the investor-owned. And as a result, they don't necessarily have the same kind of offerings. But there are some really cutting edge or leader municipal electric utilities that offer, and rural electric cooperatives that offer excellent energy efficiency programs to their customers.
Thank you.
Jim, this is a good question for you too. About this participation as an administrative leader applying for the IRA BIL dollars and distributing it to congregations. This might coincide with the Blessed Tomorrow thing that's happening on Thursday, the webinar. Can you say a little bit about that? This is an IRA program.
Yeah. It's I think the acronym is RAN, Renewing America's Nonprofits. And originally, when it was, I think it's $45 million or $50 million, and I think it's money that is going to get doled out like maybe $5 million a year over 10 years. And so when we heard about it originally, it was like, well, hey, let's get in line, folks. We're nonprofits. Let's get our ducks in a row, figure out what we need, and then be ready to apply when Uncle Sam opens up the door and says, send me your applications. But it appears that Uncle Sam has decided that the most efficient way to do this is to work with a handful of regional entities who would then receive money from the Department of Energy or whichever federal agency is involved. But let's say that's, I think some of you folks in Missouri have been reached out to by an entity called Renew Missouri. And so Renew Missouri will be putting in a bid to be a prime recipient of money from this program, from the Renewing America's Nonprofits program. And then they, as a prime recipient, would dole out money to subrecipients, which is what the churches that, in Missouri would be doing. We don't know yet how many prime recipients Uncle Sam is going to decide to work with. I'm sure from their end of it, it's a lot less headache for them to, to deal with just, a dozen entities around the United States. But it means we no longer as individual churches have direct access to that money, as I understand it, which is what we thought was going to be the case. And so we're a bit in a holding pattern right now to find out, well, who are these prime recipients going to be? I I pitched to Phoebe Morad that, well, maybe the ELCA should say, hey, we're a national entity, choose us. And then we will find a technical assistance provider that can provide these technical assistance services to ELCA congregations around the country. Or dial that back a little bit and say, well, the Minneapolis Area Synod, pick us as a prime recipient, and we will work with a technical assistance provider to dole out money to subrecipient congregations in our synod. But, our synods are not used to doing this kind of work, right? We're the business of preaching the gospel, not peddling energy. And so this is a heavy lift, I think, for a denomination or for a synod. And so hopefully there will be an entity like Renew Missouri that will be available to nonprofits in Iowa or Maryland or the state of Washington that you can then contact to say, hey, we'd like to be a subrecipient of the money that you're getting from Uncle Sam. So anyway, that's kind of what I understand about it, Noni. Now maybe
Yeah.
the thing will be clear. Maybe that'll get cleared up more at that webinar.
Yeah, and Blessed Tomorrow, and Lisa put that in the chat, and I will also put that in the resources and links. There is a webinar about that. If you can't get to the webinar, don't worry. There are others that will be attending, so that perhaps Eco America will be one of those prime recipients, and then others can be. It's a pretty quick turnaround. The letter of intent is due the end of June, and then grant applications are due in August. But we'll try to continue to get you information. I don't know about IPL if they're going to be a prime. I don't know that they have the people power to be able to administer that. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, whether you're the ELCA or whether you're the Minneapolis Area Synod or whether you're Interfaith Power and Light, none of those entities have technical assistance providers in-house.
Right.
And so they would have to contract with someone to do that. And typically those, there are some national technical assistance providers, but typically that's more state-based or region-based. And so, personally, I'm a little worried about this. I think a few folks are in line and they're going to get their money, and the rest of us are going to be left out in the cold. But,
well, and maybe once we find out who they are, we go and see if we can be a subrecipient under them. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But don't worry about all of this. We will try to get you as much information as we can. People like Jim who know how to think about these things will provide clarity, which will be helpful. And Lisa is also very helpful. So I'm going to transition a little bit because we're getting close to time. First, thank you, Jim. This is the last couple sessions have been so incredibly helpful. And and I do want to encourage all of you. He really welcomes our questions. So reach out with phone calls or an email, and he's very glad to assist. And then Lisa Brenskelly down in Houston is also a great resource for us. She's going to be working with us next month on actually how do we plug in that stuff into that calculator and make it work. So Lisa, do you want to say anything to get some volunteers for the session next month?
Sure. So I want to encourage people to consider it because there are two different ways to use the calculator. There's the long form and the short form. And I think for next month, we will aim at the short form, which requires significantly less data than the long form, but still gives you, I think, very meaningful information. And it's a good place to start. So don't think that it's going to be a huge heavy lift. It won't be. And we can put in your numbers, see what it looks like. We can play with some ideas like, if we made this improvement, how much might that have an impact and things like that. So it's not as daunting as you might think. Actually, you'll probably be surprised at how easy it is once you assemble the small amount of information that's needed to kind of do the very first steps. So yes, we're
And so-
looking for volunteers who would like to work with me over the next month-ish to get some stuff into the tool and take a look at what it says about your footprint.
So I think Steve and Kathy are primed from Topeka, and then Phoebe, she wasn't able to be here tonight, but she has her material, her utility bills, and she's willing to be one of the ones for next month. And I don't know if anyone here is at the point where they want to. Diane, is your congregation ready for that? No? Okay, okay. I was so hoping, I can't even get my bills. So from my church. So we can reach out to others in the group, but at least we have 2. So that'll be a good place to start.
Mhm.
And then Steve and Kathy, if you want to just be directly in contact with Lisa, I can get you connected.
Okay,
That'd be
great.
great. Thanks,
Wonderful.
Naomi.
Thank
Yes, please.
you. That would be fabulous. And I don't know, Lisa, is your congregation ready for that with Linda?
I don't know if for sure we can get all the data in time for next month.
Okay.
We are trying.
Okay.
I heard today from our building services person, she's a little overwhelmed right now. So
Okay.
I'm hoping we can get the data, but I don't know that I can guarantee we'll
Yeah.
have it by next month.
Well, and this is an ongoing project. We'll have at least two congregations, and then we may have some input from these webinars that have been happening, and there might be further things that Jim can share. So we're in process all the time. So that's what we'll be doing next month. Then in August, we have Gabriel Morgan. He's a pastor down in Florida, and he is going to talk to us about food, because that's one of the sections in the Cool Congregations Calculator. And he is going to talk about food waste, and there's a group that he works with. So I think that will be a really interesting way for us to think about how do we lower our footprint through how we look at food. And so that will be in August. We will continue with our buildings. This is not going to be the only sessions that we do on that, but just so you know kind of what's coming up. And then we will sometime this fall, we'll also have Emily Wilkinson, who works with Kansas Interfaith Action and Interfaith Power and Light in Kansas. She'll do some things on effective advocacy. So those are kind of the things that are coming up. If there are other things that you'd like to have us schedule, let me know, and we'll find an expert that can help talk about that. But also know that you can contact our people in between times. We are so lucky to have these people who know what they're talking about, and we're just very, very grateful for Jim and Lisa and Phoebe and so many others. Oh, speaking of Phoebe, is there anybody that would be willing to just comment a bit at the connections call it's actually August 22nd, about using either the calculator or the energy portfolio from EPA to talk about measuring reductions in your carbon emissions? Is anybody interested? Cindy, would you be willing?
Sure, I'll be brave, right?
Oh, good.
There you go.
How about Susan? Would you be willing? I mean, you don't have to have like a major presentation. Okay.
Yes, and I wanted to ask if it would be too hoggy for me to raise my hand for the Lisa part.
No, that's not too
Yeah.
hoggy. To me, you're brilliant because you're utilizing the resources. So
Mhm.
Lisa, you have 3 right now. So that is great. So August, and the other
Are
thing
you
in August,
taking notes, Noni? Because I'm not going to remember who the 3 people are.
I am.
Good, thank you.
Okay, yes. And then the other thing I want to mention in August on the connections call will also be someone from Revolve, which I think Lisa, you mentioned, which has to do with solar. So there's a lot of opportunities. And again, these things are all going to be recorded. So you don't have to be there in person, but just know that there are lots of resources to help you. You don't have to figure all this out on your own. So So lots of good things. It's wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Anything else for the good of the day? It's great to have you all here. Okay, just God bless you with grace and love and hope as we go to love all our neighbors, the people, those on the margins, those who are hurting, the animals, the streams, the trees. God bless you all. Good night.
Thank you.
All right,
Good night.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
Hi,
Thanks, Kim.
everybody.